2022 edition of Treasure Valley Data Enthusiasts. I'm Mike Migelski. Happy to introduce to you Sandy Dunn, CISO. Her and I had the opportunity to work together at a client a few years ago. And Sandy has started Quark IQ, where she provides virtual CISO services. And she's going to talk to us today about zero trust. And I asked her, since these are data people, can you talk about the intersection of zero trust and data? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sandy, and I have pressed record. So we are being recorded. You're welcome to pitch in at any time with questions, either verbally or via the chat. I would ask that you keep your mic on mute until you have something specific to say, just to keep interruptions down. So with that, thankful to have Sandy Dunn. Take it away.
Well, thank you, Mike. As Mike said, we have had a great relationship. I met him when we were trying to solve some of the data issues that we had at one of my previous employers. I've been part of the technology community in the Boise Valley for a very long time, focused on cybersecurity since about 2001. Worked at HP, worked at Blue Cross of Idaho. Many years ago, I actually sold Micron PCs, so I'm deeply entrenched in kind of all of the different technology pieces here in the Treasure Valley. And one of the things that I really wanted you guys to take away from this is this is an opportunity as a cybersecurity team and a data team to really unify both of the challenges that we have and work with the business on a common objective. So the topics today, I'm just going to hit kind of the first three topics pretty quickly. But of course, as a cybersecurity professional, I always have to warn you about the upcoming danger. I want to talk about the big change in cybersecurity as far as how we're talking about it and the expectations, the seismic shift to resilience. I do want to focus on the good news. My nickname is Sandy Sunshine, so I'm an eternal optimist, even though sometimes dealing with, when you're working in cybersecurity, it's difficult to always be optimistic because all you see is vulnerabilities. But there is a lot of good happening within the industry. And then lastly, really talk about zero trust, what it is, how it benefits you as a person focused on data and how it may impact what you're doing. So I would typically ask if there was any comments or feedback, but you guys have been so quiet. Any thoughts, anything that you want? I'll ask again, is there anything specifically that you want to make sure that I cover? Big questions that you have, or just wait for kind of an open session at the end?
I'll pitch in something, Sandy, just as a thought. I don't know if it's as much a question as a thought, but as a data professional responsible for gathering data at organizations, I feel that there's an elevated responsibility to make sure that the right people see the data and never the wrong people. And so zero trust to me is a guideline that draws that line that says you need to know before you're allowed to see. And that's a good mantra to have as we go about our day in our business, because we're constantly under pressure to give me the data, give me the data, give me the data. But it is our responsibility to make sure that we're giving the appropriate data.
I completely agree. And I think, and again, it is always about the data. It's always about, that's the most valuable asset that any organization has, is their data. And, the challenges that, often I see in data teams is there's data spread everywhere. everyone doesn't take the time to clean it up, and the data quality isn't there. And, zero trust is really an opportunity to look at the data that you have and make sure that it's relevant. It's basic attack surface management, where you want to be able to reduce the amount of stuff that you have to be able to protect. And that's a big win for a data quality team or a data management team, data governance, because now you have these other levers that are really driving these initiatives that you have been asking for ever. So that's the big opportunity I see is now, I will go into it later. Zero trust is kind of a buzzy word. It's really a strategy. You have to use it, with a little, you have to be a little cautious how you use it. You don't want to abuse it. But I think that from a cybersecurity team and a data management team, the opportunity is our executives are hearing this word zero trust. So it gives us the opportunity to really work together to drive a common mission. So the threat forecast, you can see off to the right, the statistics for 2023, 2024, 2025. It goes up, it continues to go up. And that is worldwide. Estimates on crime impact in trillions of dollars worldwide from cybersecurity issues. There was actually a recent third party that was, and what you're going to see is more attacks on individual people and specifically through your supply chain. So third party attacks. So there's a vendor called CloudSec that they actually do risk assessment or risk protection for organizations. And one of their employees, this was just published, one of their employees went to their hardware supplier because he was having a PC issue. When that system was wiped and returned to him, it actually had a malware. It had a piece of malware on there that sniffed his keys for their Jira application, and they were compromised. Thankfully, they actually had very good security practices in place, and they were able to identify it and shut it down fairly quickly. But I think you're going to see more and more of that as we get better at doing security at, just the basic block and tackling. Attackers are going to continue to look at third-party vendors or individual users and trying to compromise those. So this is a combination from Mandiant and the INSA threat reports. They anticipate more attacks by non-organized attacker, more extortion, less ransomware. So a lot of your ransomware vendors are saying, let's make this as efficient as possible. We'll just steal their data and then ask for a lot of money, as opposed to just trying to tie up your environment in ransomware. Again, the widespread rise of info stealers. So that's malicious packages that are deployed to try and log keystrokes, access your webcam, all of those backdoor loggers that we've seen in the past. Supply chain, advanced disinformation campaigns. So in the CloudSec attack, one of the things that they immediately started doing was claiming much broader impact to the organization that they attacked. So claiming things that they had done that they actually hadn't done. And that, again, causes chaos. If you're the victim of that type of attack, and all of a sudden you're getting a whole bunch of calls from your customers asking, like, what happened? Did you really lose all your keys? What happened? That's part of the chaos and the dysfunction that they leverage as an attacker. The rise of digital surveillance and the loss of privacy. Privacy, actually, as much as I love talking about cybersecurity, the privacy issue from your perspective at your organizations, we're seeing a lot of lawsuits coming in because of privacy. In fact, there's a federal bill in front of Congress right now called the American Data Privacy and Protection Act, the ADPPA, where they're trying to use some of the GDPR and some of the legislation that's already come through California and make that a federal federal requirement. It's still on the fence whether or not it'll get passed, but the fact that they've got it in front of Congress, it should be kind of a important for everyone who's not. So if you're in healthcare or if you're in federal, in financial, pardon me, you're already have been working through some of this. But if you're working for an organization that hasn't specifically had to meet financial or HIPAA type requirements, you probably should start thinking about, what is it going to take to be able to prove that we're doing risk appropriately. Human error and exploited legacy systems. So if you look at the Verizon data breach report, as much as we like to talk about attackers, unfortunately, with the complexity we have a lot in our environments, it's really human error. And, yes, there is some insider threat, but the bigger problem is the complexity and then human error. Targeted attacks, of course, we're all carrying around probably the most vulnerable device that we have, which is our phone. So attacks specifically on those smart devices, the rise of hybrid attacks, and artificial intelligence abuse. Any questions on that slide before I keep going forward? Feedback, thoughts?
Great info. Thank you.
Awesome. So,
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, it's actually not just purple bubbles on my screen. That was nice. I thought maybe you mocked those up to make me feel better, Mike.
Not at all.
So let's talk about cyber resilience. Now, there has been discussion around resilience for a number of years, but it was really the second topic. It wasn't the primary topic. And now what you're seeing, governments and other types of recommendation organizations like OWASP or any of the ones that provides cybersecurity guidance, they're really leading with resilience. So I've listed out here several different, oh no, my GIF isn't moving. That's this. So this was, oh, there we go. I got it going now.
That was worth it.
Okay, good. So what you're hearing from INSA and from the UK government and from Australia and certainly our own government is lead with resilience. That means, can you recover from an attack? How good if they've moved away from language where they're saying, you're expected to prevent everything, identify and prevent. Now they're saying, what, we know this is really hard and it's almost impossible to stay in front of all of the different types of attack. Just make sure that you can identify when you've been attacked and recover quickly. I think this one, this off to the right, this image right here is from the group of people that send out information to the board of directors, like specific guidance for people who are on boards, and they have 6 different guidelines they have that as a board member you should be asking about resilience. And honestly, I think that'll do more to drive the conversation around resilience than anything else. If the board is coming in and saying, hey, I want to know, how are you guys managing risk? I want to know, how are you guys designing resilience into your organization? That's going to really come from that top down, where people are going to realize that they've got to be able to answer those questions. So what does that mean to you as a data, people who are specifically focused on data? How should you be thinking about this? So is everyone familiar with the NIST cybersecurity framework? This is kind of the framework that is the baseline for communication around cybersecurity. And when we talk about resilience. Historically, people focused over here off to the left, identify, protect, detect. The change is now we're talking about resilience. So we talk about left a boom and right a boom. So, boom is your incident. And that means how quickly can I respond to my attack? How quickly can I recover? It's really the ability to anticipate and recover from adverse conditions, anything that might come up. Even with the pandemic, being able to go remotely quickly. How quickly can you move to being remote? From your perspective, as a data management team, you want to be thinking about high availability, disaster recovery, isolation, immutability. How do I know that this data is still good? And really, architect it in. You want to be able to say, hey, we've built this with this resilience focus from as we started planning out our organization or out our solution. Any questions on that? So let me ask. So
I was just going to say really helpful. I wasn't actually familiar with NIST, so this is great.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to talk about cybersecurity until you guys, don't want to, I'm happy to come back and focus on frameworks and communicating with those.
It sounds like, Sandy, by your previous slide about resilience, is that we can do our best to identify and protect, but it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when we're going to be attacked. And so that detection piece, we need a plan in place to respond and recover, but that detection piece is critical because you have to know and be able to respond very quickly if you are breached, if somebody steals the keys or logs in, or there's a suspicious network or data request activity. What tools, maybe you'll get to this, what tools help us with that critical detection piece that you might recommend, or tools or processes?
Yeah, that we could go way deep on that. There's the tool market is almost honestly the biggest challenge for cybersecurity teams that are doing, they have their SOC analysts and their SOAR analysts, is they're really, typically they're overwhelmed with the amount of data that they're getting for tools. That's what you hope for, that the organization is mature enough that they actually have a SIM. They're actually logging their key assets, and they know what's going on. But yeah, we can, and again, let's keep track of any topics that are interesting to everyone. And I can come back and we can drill into those. I have a quick question.
I'll do that.
Has anyone on the phone been asked to be part of an incident response tabletop? So I would say that's telling. Like that would be the first step, which would be going back to the security team at your organization and saying, hey, when's the next tabletop? I'd like to be a part of it. I want to understand, if we have an incident, what's my role? What do you need from me? How do I tie into it? Because I guarantee if they're trying to recover, it's all about the data. It's all about access and information, the applications. And if the people on this phone who are the key data people at that organization aren't involved, I would say that's a first step. Find out, hey guys, what's our incident response plan? When was the last time it was updated? When was the last time we did a tabletop? I really want to be a part of that. I want to understand what's my role and what I need to be prepared for. So, the good news is we have legislation coming into place that's really focused on the right issues. So in May, President Biden passed the bill, a cybersecurity bill, really looking at our supply chain. They pulled in a lot of industry leaders, and they actually have created an open source framework that's very well thought out. There was legislation passed for making sure that federal workers are getting the right training. The thing that I have really appreciated is when you look at guidance that you're receiving from OWASP or from Amazon or for Google or the Center for Internet Security, all of these are referencing the other work that's going on. So if you're looking at the Center for Internet Security and you're wondering how does this relate to the guidance that you got from NIST or the guidance you got from MITRE, they're all they're compatible. They're recognizing that, hey, this is better if we all kind of are consolidating on our message. Is everyone using like the well-architected tools from Amazon, from AWS, from Google, from Microsoft? Have you guys looked into the well-architected documentation? That's where I would probably
I don't know what you mean by that term, well architected. Is this like what is that exactly?
It's best practices around using. So if you're going into AWS, if your back end of your solution is hosted in AWS, you can go and find the well-architected documentation for AWS and find specifically how they recommend to do it. Google has well-architected information, so does Microsoft. And it's verbose, really good information.
Yep.
OWASP, if you're doing OWASP, typically, has started kind of focusing on web applications, but really everything's a web application. So you can go out there and find cheat sheets, the application verification standard documentation, which is just exactly requirements for implementing security around different projects. So if you're looking for your cases, your use cases for security, all you have to do is download that information or access it online, copy paste, and you have your use cases. The Center for Internet Security, they have the CIS top 18 controls, security controls, and their documentation specifically calls out what are the controls that you should have in place for data. They have their risk assessment tools. They have their ransomware business impact tools. They have benchmarks for almost everything. They have scanning tools. Just there's so many resources out there. Don't struggle trying to come up with it yourself. Whatever you're doing, go take a shortcut. Go find that information that's out there. NIST, they have information specifically on zero trust, on cryptography, on almost any topic that you can think of. There's guidance out there. Again, it's heavy. You're going to have to sort through it. And it's almost impossible to follow it exactly, but it's a great standard. MITRE, they have the MITRE attack framework. Is anyone on the call today? Are you familiar with MITRE attack?
No.
Okay. I'll pull it up at the end. There is a specific tool that they, it's a Chrome plugin that's awesome. So I'll do a demo on that at the end if we have time. MITRE attack and defend. I mean, if you go to one website after this, make sure you look at the MITRE attack framework and understand. So what it is how it's the sequence of steps that an attacker uses to actually attack an organization. So I'll be upfront, there's a lot out there, but they're looking, and the benefit to you and to anyone who uses those tools is it's based on actual attacks. So it's based on information that they're captured from how specific attackers are gaining access to organizations. So it's not theory. This is real. This is how it's happening. CISA has some fantastic tools. They have their knowledge, their vulnerabilities, most attacked vulnerabilities. So, everyone should be looking at that at an organization and understanding the type of vulnerabilities that are being leveraged for attacks and making sure that you're in front of those. They actually offer a service where you can request an external vulnerability scan at no cost to your organization. You just type it in, you send it to a specific email. I understand, I think they're a little backed up. You may have to wait a week or two, but that's a free service. So there's tons of great stuff out there for an organization that wants to be able to move forward and be protected. Any questions, comments, feedback? So one of some of the advancements that I'm really excited about is there's a tool called Tines. So my experience is seeing SOC teams just overwhelmed with all of these SOC alerts. Oh, they get an alert that says so and so was up at midnight, in Canada. Now I've got to go verify that was actually that user. And it's very time consuming. They can't ignore those because it could be a malicious attacker. Well, Tines is a solution. It's a no code solution that allows you to automate that. Really the grunt work out of doing the SOC stuff and put some automation behind it. Now, I see an opportunity and I'm excited about anything that drives efficiency, but there's also concerns around that, all of the no code and low code solutions. Well, I go out to OWASP and they have the top 10 low code, no code security risks. So all of a sudden now I'm using that OWASP to help me. If I'm implementing a solution like that, I already know what the risks are and I'm shutting it down. I'm implementing it correctly. Off to the right here, this is their cheat sheet series. And you can see what the cheat sheet series are just fairly, some of them can be very technical and detailed, but it goes specifically to whatever issue you're trying to solve. If you're trying to, how should I set up a password reset for my customers? There's a cheat sheet. How should I do errors in logging and auditing? There's a cheat sheet. For all of that, you can go get these great resources that walk you through it. You can see off to the right where I've highlighted the data protection and privacy architectural requirements cheat sheet. It's a cheat sheet that you can just go out and say, okay, I got to make sure I've got this covered. I've got this covered. I need to test for this. It gives you all of the things that you need to kind of stay in front of. So we're talking about zero trust. Well, if I go out and I plug in zero trust at the OWASP front page, one of the first things that pops up is this 80-page. Mike, when you were asking me earlier about, where's that easy button? This is like, if you need to understand how to enable zero trust, go download this document. Like, this person has walked you through all of the things that you need to consider and set it up. You'll have to tweak it for your environment, but wow, what a great place to start if you're thinking about doing zero trust. And again, zero trust really, what I'm encouraging you guys to do is understand what zero trust is and incorporate it into your communication, to your business, and to your cybersecurity team. That's why I'm saying it's your secret weapon. It's your code word that now all of a sudden you have that placeholder where you can get everyone on the right page and everyone is recognizing this is the vision, this is the strategy. So zero trust, what is it? Well, it isn't really a solution. It isn't a single button. It isn't one thing. It's really a strategy. It's a mindset. It's a set of security design principles that require software solutions and configuration. But it's saying that anytime something happens, we want to know, I'm not going to trust anybody, zero trust. I'm always going to verify through a policy setting, set up in our environment. If this device wants to access this data, I go to the policy, I verify that, based on how you set up that policy, yes, this is the right user. They have the permissions. They're accessing from a device I trust. All of the criteria, there's a lot of flexibility in it. Where you can say, okay, this is a trustworthy request. And again, it's not easy. I'm sure I don't have to tell you guys how difficult it is to manage data within an environment. You typically want to start with something specific and then work out, look at a specific type of goal or mission that your business is trying to accomplish, and then incorporate zero trust as part of the strategy. And it does need to be, it is an architecture strategy. So as you guys know, that, architecture is really key. You got to be able to plan ahead and build on top of that planned out architecture. The key to it is really the difference between implicit trust and explicit trust. So implicit trust is, I'm really keeping my security guard at the front door of my business. But once they're in the business, I trust wherever they go, whatever they do, I'm going to trust them. Explicit trust is, I don't care that you're in the building. You made it past the front door. But if you want to use the bathroom, if you want to use a stapler, like, I always have to verify who you are. Again, it's making sure that everything that people are doing, there's some level of verification that they should be doing it. So again, just a visual of that, this person says, hey, can I access that file? And then we have our policy right here sitting in the middle that's configured to say, yeah, you can access that file. Here's your key. This bad person comes in, and that, not necessarily an attacker, but maybe it's a third party that's come in, or maybe it's an employee who shouldn't be accessing that information. They're trying to access it. Our security person looks at the policy and says, nope, you don't have permission to access that, and they're denying. Although we're kind of focusing on data and role-based access, it's important to recognize that it's much more than that. You're really securing your network access. You're looking at network segmentation. You're managing your devices, making sure that they're trustworthy. You're securing your cloud access. You're looking at, from a physical standpoint, securing your sites and areas. You're managing your third parties. You're managing your visitors. You have control over what applications you're allowed. You have good asset management. And ultimately, you're securing the access to those crown jewels, your data. So there's really 7 tenets of zero trust. Rigorously enforce that policy, maintain your data integrity, gather all of the data so it's continuous improvement, consider every data source. IoT, it's huge. In my previous roles, I've certainly I can remember someone wanted to put an Alexa on their desktop to make their work easier. And I was like, no, no Alexas on our desktops. You're always trying to keep in front of all of the different IoT devices that are now everything smart, right? From your doors to your heaters to your HVAC, you've really got to stay in front of that stuff. And then you grant that access on a session based, once they're in, you set that session, whatever the session requirements, 24 hours, 4 hours, whatever you need, but then they re-authenticate. And then you moderate it with your policy. Any questions on what zero trust is? Like, does it I know this is, if you haven't been, it's huge. It's a huge topic. And I do have some, I provided my slides to Mike. There's a bunch of resources, but if you just Google zero trust, and you're going to get overwhelmed with resources. Has anyone heard this before? The word zero trust, you've come across it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And
Okay.
it's certainly a key topic for us right now. I'm just not part of the security team, so I'm not quite as well versed on so many of these things.
But that's really interesting feedback, Dave, because, you know, as I explain it, like, you should be part of those conversations. From my perspective.
Yeah, I am. Just, I mean, prior to getting to the trust category, so many of those other things I'm not really up to speed on.
But I would say, Sandy, we should be, as data professionals, we should be, right? As managers or directors or architects, we should be part of that security team. But oftentimes we're too busy with and this is not an excuse, this is just reality, too busy with the demands of, I need data, I need better reports, get this info to the CEO, gather all the data, put it in one place, that we forget that we've created a asset that's extremely valuable, but also extremely vulnerable. And so I think it is easy for us to get waylaid in our duty to produce data and forget about our responsibility to protect privacy.
Well, and yeah, and access. I mean, yes. I would say from the cybersecurity perspective, you know, that never being able to stay in front of all of the things is a challenge. And I think that, you know, this digital transformation, my hope is that, you know, with some of the challenges that we've seen, maybe we'll get some breathing space, where we can take a step back and start to be more, uh, you know, more thoughtful on our strategy, like pull out of the chaos and be more strategic. You know, I've been thinking that, hoping for that for a really long time, but I can still keep hoping.
Uh, the way I like to put that, Sandy, I don't know if this is useful to you or not, but we tell our clients, you know, obviously at InfoVia, we're called on to create a data warehouse. So they're most interested in gathering data, sorting it, and producing some reports or analytics or machine learning algorithms against that data. Very seldom does anybody ask us proactively, but we also need to protect our data, or we also need to make sure that only the right people are seeing PII, or there's a need to know basis that we need to protect in our or enforce in our environment. And so we like to remind our clients, and this is the part that I wanted to share with you, to bake security into the cake. When you're building
Yeah.
your data platform, bake it in, think about it, design it in. Don't frost it with security afterwards, because that gets you down a path that that shortcut that seems to be a shortcut. We'll think about it later. Starts you down a path that it's pretty hard once those cats are out of the bag. And once you start sharing your data with your organization, it's pretty hard to reel them back in. So we always say security is flour, not frosting. You
Well,
bake it in.
and I swear we didn't plan this, but Mike just hit on exactly what I wanted to for everyone to take away from this. Is there is baking it in means that you're using a zero trust strategy. If you're baking security into your data management practices, you are thinking through a zero trust lens. And that's what I'm saying. If I was to say, what if we're building out a zero trust superhero, that's their superpower. That's the opportunity for us as the data team and the cybersecurity team is to go back to our organization and say, hey, we're following, we need to do this because the long vision is to be able to support a zero trust strategy. Does everyone agree that that's a superpower?
Absolutely.
Okay, you guys got to be interactive for this part.
Absolutely.
Do you actually like put this in? Do you put this superhero character in front of your users, your customers, your audience, as if they're putting the cape on and trying to put themselves in this persona, or is this something different than that?
Well, I was putting it on us. I was giving us, everyone in this meeting, this superhero cape. I think that zero trust is an opportunity for me from the cybersecurity team to drive the better practices that I've been trying to get everyone to follow for ever since. So as a cybersecurity team, a lot of times what we feel like is it's like trying to protect a house that just has the beams up. There's no doors, there's no walls, there's no fence, and everyone says, well, keep all the bad guys out. But you're trying to protect this really difficult environment because it's got all these flaws. And for data management teams, I think you guys really fight silos of data quality, data management, that really a system around being able to control just the huge volume of information, that you're trying to, it's one thing to have all of this data. It's a whole nother thing to have good data quality that you're getting decent intelligence out of, that adds value to the organization. So I think that this is an opportunity to really drive improvements for both our types of teams to support our business in the long run. I think that, and at the end of the day, who wins is the business, right? They're well protected and they're getting the data and information that has the quality that they need to be able to drive their business. So if that's our superpower, what's our tragic flaw or weakness? We kind of talked, and I had some thoughts, but I'd be interested in hearing from you guys. From if we're building this zero trust superhero, what would be his tragic flaw or weakness, his or her there?
Distraction, and lack of distraction would be one, which I'm kind of beating a dead horse there, but the other one would be not knowing when you've been, violated, or not knowing that your data has leaked. That seems like, is that what you're looking for, Sandy? Those types of weaknesses?
Yeah, that was so I think the challenge that if you were to go and present this to your CEO and say, I would go with Dave, and Dave and I go in and talk to the CEO and go, we really believe in zero trust. And we flash up 5 slides that talk about zero trust and the benefits of zero trust. I think every CEO out there would say, absolutely, that makes perfect sense. But I think that where it breaks down is when we go out and say, okay, you're saying we're going to do this, we need support, we need to this needs a priority over a different project, or we need this budget to be able to do this, or I need to hire these people because they have the expertise. To me, when I was thinking through that, I think that's the tragic flaw. Everyone's happy to bite off on the dream and the vision, but when it comes down to actually supporting it and doing the work and getting the resources, that's always a challenge. So our background.
I was just going to chime in and say, so I'm in kind of an interesting scenario now, where not a scenario, but interesting organizational scenario, where um, we now have a chief security and trust officer. You know, he originally, when he first came in, he was really our CISO, but became kind of morphed that title, and then he has hired um, 6 different director positions that are all security related. So, you know, we have a director of attack surface management, and director of info security governance, risk and compliance, and you know, a data privacy director of data privacy, those kinds of things. So we have this really kind of huge framework for an cybersecurity team. And so from my perspective, I'm not in that team, but I of course am communicating with and interacting with regularly members of that team about things like zero trust. So it's an interesting. So I feel like if I were actually in that organization, you know, this is the focus I would have would be more like what you're describing. So it's very interesting for me to hear, and I of course have had visibility into windows of that. Just not, it's just not my, you know, it's a little bit like Mike described. I wouldn't say that I'm distracted. I would say that I'm charged with other things. So interesting to
Yeah,
hear though.
but it
On my
does. I mean,
side,
it sounds healthy. Yeah. Go ahead, Efren.
I was going to say on my side, I've always heard zero trust, and I'm on the side that actually has to create and implement. I've never heard of anyone actually discuss how they implement zero trust. Like, what tools are they using? How are they, how they're going about to make sure that the data is being protected. I've always heard it in the high level type of conversations we're having now, but nothing in the nitty gritty.
Um, I would say probably the to just get a very big overview of the complexity of it, that OWASP presentation that I shared a link to. Actually, probably the easiest way for you to find it is just go out to OWASP.org and type in zero trust. It's one of the first links that pops up. That would probably be very insightful for you, Efren, because I mean, the reality is yes, it is a buzzword, and it's great to say, right? Zero trust. We don't trust anyone. There is so much that goes into being able to create that actual environment. Everything from, creating the ability to be able to tie that policy to the request, to, tools, systems that support it. Like it's not, it's pretty, there's a lot to it, I guess is what I'm trying to explain. So yeah, I think
Pretty
that
intensive.
would, yeah. Again, just for fun, our background, hey, we, as Mike has said many times, both cybersecurity and data teams we're overwhelmed with all of the requests, all the things that we, our very long list of things that we know we should be in front of. Our community relationship within your organization, depending on the maturity of your organization, a lot of times you're trying to educate business. The people that you really need to help you drive these initiatives are your executive teams and your business teams. So really, I would encourage you to think about, like, who are those people in our organization who, if we had more a deeper conversation around zero trust, would help us champion it within our organization. And of course, the rivals are every other person who needs time and resources or business objectives that take us away from being able to support zero trust. So in summary, of course, the internet, it has motivated and smart bad guys. Stay vigilant, focus on resilience and recovery. There's great superhero resources out there, use them. and use zero trust as an opportunity to align your tactics with your business team and your other cybersecurity teams. So, any other questions or? And again, here's all the resources. And Mike has the PDF that he can send to you that
Yeah,
has
thank you.
these different resources.
I do have a thought. We have about 5 minutes left, but someone asked the question, how do people implement? We have a lot of talk about it's important, but not a lot of practical knowledge about how to implement. So you sent us to OWASP. You told us to use the well-architected best practices for your cloud providers. We tell our clients, first of all, no local organization or I'll say no organization can do the job of intrusion prevention as well as the cloud providers can. It used to be the opposite, right? We used to be afraid to put our data on the cloud. Now I'd say you're crazy to keep your data in your own data center. Do you agree with that, or is there?
I do.
Is that a statement that we can make wholeheartedly, or are there exceptions to that? Do you know of organizations who do a good job of managing their own data centers that can compete with these cloud providers?
Well, and only INL,
Okay.
but like if there are organizations out there that, and even then I think they use the cloud, they just use it a little differently. Again, I totally agree with what Mike says. The challenge with the cloud is maintaining your cost. So it's a security and a cost conversation. The lock-in. So everyone has experienced the AWS bill shock. So understanding how to be efficient and making sure that you're managing all those resources. And then, of course, the configuration. What bites people with the cloud is instead of actually having people who understand how to use the cloud correctly, they're using it without all of the tools that are available. And that's why you see so many breaches. I mean, because when you think about it, one disadvantage of the cloud is, of course, as an attacker, that's where you're going to go, because that's where the opportunity, the chances of actually getting a hit are much higher, and that people are using it. So yes, I agree with you. As far as to your first question, like where do you get started? I would tell you, go to the well-architected, go to the OWASP Microsoft has really good direction. It's not something you learn in an hour. Like there is a lot to it. So, just, as you have an opportunity, start digging in. And that way, when you're having conversations with the cybersecurity team, you're asking good questions and you're making sure that they're not surprising you with anything. I think the biggest challenge that happens is if you're off in a silo doing something and the cybersecurity team is off in a silo doing something, and then you kind of try to go to production with the solution and it gets blocked in release because you didn't implement it some correct way or something. Like just, opening up that dialogue between the two teams and making sure you're on the same page. Just really quickly, and again, I'm happy to always come back and talk about this. This is the MITRE attack. You can go to it at attack@mitre.org, and this actually goes through all of the steps that an attacker uses to actually attack an organization. It is focused on kind of the ransomware type of attacker. It's not necessarily your insider threat, but this is, again, a wonderful tool. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you is this plugin. There is a link to it. This is from MITRE Intuitivity, and I can't even say it. But what you can do is, if you're looking for something, maybe there's a new attacker group, a new Chinese APT that came out, and you're wondering, how are they attacked? What kind of vulnerabilities that are they using or something, you can type the name of that, just the name of it in here, and MITRE will bring it up. Or you can just type in something like database right here, and it will bring up everything in the MITRE attack that is related to databases. And you can go get more information about it. So I know we're right at the end of our 5 minutes. I can stay if anyone has any additional questions or comments. I'm happy to stay and talk about it.
Yeah, and I'm happy to keep this open. I think we'll wrap up the recording right now, Sandy. So thank you. And we have recorded this and we will send it out after it's published on YouTube. We'll send it out for the attendees, but also the invitees. And we are looking, a little housekeeping item, we are looking for other topics for 2023. So this will be our final 2022 topic. Thanks for rounding up the year on a high note, Sandy. But we are looking for new topics next year. I wrote a couple things down if we want to stay on this thread or resume this thread. I'm interested in tools that people have used, so I would love to have a conversation about that. We have our clients asking for detection tools. How do I detect a new path or a new request for data or something that a user is doing that's outside of their character? How should I detect those things within my environment? Because that's a good indicator that maybe somebody stole an identity or stole the keys and is poking around where they shouldn't be.
So that would really go, I mean, there's tons of this stuff out there, Mike. And so your endpoint detection, the biggest challenge that you have with setting up behavior analytics within an environment is determining what's normal. Even if you're using Microsoft Office 365, though, there's tons of tools within. If you have probably even the E3 license, but certainly the E5 license, Microsoft really, I have a love-hate relationship with Microsoft, but they are in the E5 license specifically, they are giving you a lot of those tools just out with the license. So so what you do is it's just specific things that you set up within your detection roles. The one that we have used in my previous organizations is specifically location. And you have things like impossible travel. So if someone on Friday night accesses your environment from New York, and then all of a sudden they're accessing it from Denver, that'll trigger a notification, saying, hey, what are you doing? And you can lock your users down so they're only accessing within a certain country or certain region. So yeah, we can talk more about that. But yeah,
well, let's take this action item. For the people on this call and the people that might listen to the recording, in order for us to continue this discussion, we want to hear from you. So you can email info@infovia.com or me, M. Migelski, at infovia.com and vote for your next some future topics and be willing to contribute to those as well. Now, past the element of security or the topic of security, we want to hear from other organizations on what is working and what is not working for you in your data environment. And so please think about and volunteer to present. This is an informal, dialogue-centric user group, and we need to hear actual use cases, case studies, and stories from the trenches. And so please reach out to me and let me know what you would like to speak on or hear about in 2023. So with that, I'm going to close the recording, and then we can hang on a little bit longer for anybody who has remaining questions for Sandy. Okay, so I've stopped recording. Is there any follow-up questions? Anything anybody didn't want recorded that they wanted to ask about?
I just wanted to say that I need to step away, and thank you very much. Appreciate it. Great, very knowledgeable, obviously, and what a deep and amazing topic this is. And so thanks. Talk soon, Mike.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Sandy.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, we're down to 4 left. Give 10 seconds for anybody to pipe in with any other questions. Hey, Sandy, well, thank you. And Krista's typing something here. I added a few notes in the meeting chat. Maybe Sandy, you could grab those notes and correct anything that I mistyped. They were just they're more to remind me of some of the key points, but if you wanted to edit those, and I can include those in the email that I'll send out with the recording. Do you also want me to include your email address in that, or would you prefer I
Sure.
didn't? You do.
No, go.
Okay.
Please contact me if anyone has, thinks about everything and has additional questions, or would love, or is interested in me coming and helping your organization. Please send me an email. Let's get together.
Okay.
As far as your notes, Mike, everything's covered in the
deck.
yeah, in the deck and in the references. So yeah.
So I think I'll just send out your PDF and a link
Okay.
to the video and your email so that people can get a hold of you.
Awesome.
Sound good?
Yep, sounds perfect.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Well,
everyone.
thanks everybody. Thanks for dialing in, and don't forget to bake your security into the cake.
Yes. Thanks.
Thanks, Sandy. Appreciate it.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.